I'm going to rank every popular hair loss product. I've worked with hundreds of black men, so I show you which ones work and which are just a waste of your hard-earned dollars. Starting with Batana Oil, because the internet will make you feel like you're crazy if you haven't tried this yet. You see the before and afters. You see things like Miracle, Grow. And then somebody calls it the ancient secret, and you thinking like, ancient secret? This might bring my hairline back. And listen, I understand why. It's natural, so it checks that box off. It looks rich, it checks that box off. And compared with medication, it feels like the safer answer. Now, does that mean it does nothing? No. Batana oil can coat the hair shaft. It may help dry, brittle hair feel softer, shinier, break less. You know what I'm talking about? That matters, especially for black men trying to hold on to the length of their hair. But this is where people mix up two different things. Keeping the hair from breaking is not the same as making a shrinking follicle grow new hair. And when it comes to science, we don't have controlled human trials showing Batana oil can reactivate follicles or reverse, male pattern hair loss. Would I use it on dry hair? Yeah. Would I call it hair loss treatment? No. And if your scalp is already flaky, inflamed, or yeast prone, putting a heavy oil on top can add buildup and make the scalp more uncomfortable. So if you're looking at Batana oil for good hair care, great. It's a great option. However, if you're looking for it to be a hair loss treatment, it's weak sauce. Okay? Now, for that reason, Batana oil goes in the E tier. Now let's move from something people hope will grow hair to something proven to produce growth. Minoxidil. Minoxidil works. I'm not going to play with that. The real question is not whether it works. The real question is what happens when you stop. Most men don't think about that part. They believe once minoxidil grows the hair is theirs and they can move on. Walking down the street, doing my thing. While you are using it, minoxidil can stimulate struggling follicles. It can extend the growth phase and improve hair density. If you're in the early stages of hair loss, remember that it can't bring back a follicle that is destroyed or scarred. And it doesn't permanently change why those follicles became vulnerable in the first place. Now, the FDA label right there is clear. Continued use is required. When you stop, those new hairs that you just got, that you've been flexing on the internet with, you've been in the phone looking at your photos, asking people, hey man, you see them new hairs? Asking your lady, asking your mama, asking your friend, you're on FaceTime, hey man, look, things changing for me. Hey, when you stop though, those new hairs can and will be lost within like 3 to 4 months. That's why I call minoxidil a Band-Aid. And that's not an insult. A Band-Aid has a job. It can protect. It can stabilize. But when you rip it off, you find out whether that problem underneath was actually corrected. So when I look at minoxidil, it has strong evidence, has real results, but it is an ongoing maintenance treatment. So let's go ahead and put minoxidil in the A tier, buddy. Now, let's jump from medication that can actually grow hair to the one hair loss answer everybody gets and almost everybody grabs. Biotin Gummies. Now, I did it too. I remember when I started thinning and I was new to hair loss. I wasn't a trichologist yet, and I didn't know anything about hair loss treatments. So I walked into Target, looking down, and I'm at Atlantic Station here in Atlanta, and I'm like, okay, where the Biotin, where you at? And I grabbed that bottle that said hair, skin, and nails. You know what I'm talking about? Y'all seen that? Hair, skin, and nails. When you see that, you're like, okay, I'm in the right place. In my mind, it was simple. Biotin meant more hair. Okay? That belief is everywhere. But biotin may only help when a true biotin deficiency is contributing to the problem. And that deficiency is rare. If you're not deficient, taking more biotin doesn't solve the reason you're thinning. It just gives you more biotin. In fact, high doses can also interfere with certain blood tests, including thyroid testing. Now you are taking something for your hair while making it harder to see what is happening inside the body. That is backwards. Biotin has a job. Blindly using it as a hair loss treatment is not the job. Biotin goes in the E tier. Go ahead and put that bad boy right there. Yeah, right there. Real quick, if your hair is thinning and you still do not know which direction to take, stop guessing. You can schedule a free hair loss consultation with my team through the link below. We look at what's happening and help you understand your next step. Now, let's get back to the board. Now, let's go from a gummy bottle to a clinic procedure that can cost hundreds or thousands of dollars. PRP. You sit in the clinic, they draw your blood, concentrate the platelets, and inject them into your scalp. Now, because it comes from your own body, it involves needles, and costs real money, it feels like this should be stronger. It feels like this should be permanent. PRP can reduce a response. I'm not saying it's fake. It may stimulate active follicles and improve thickness or density. Now, the problem is there's no single PRP formula. One clinic may prepare it differently from another. You got the injection schedule changes. You have the maintenance plan changes. So the results change too. And your platelets are not a signal. They are a diagnosis. So they may tell your struggling follicles to do more, but they don't tell you why the follicle became weak in the first place. So you may still need to do maintenance treatments just to hold that response. That means you can spend serious money stimulating the downstream symptom and still not know what's driving it upstream. I don't rank PRP in F tier because it can never work. I rank it there because as a complete hair loss solution, it can cost you serious money and still leave the main question unanswered. So PRP, you got to put that in the F tier, buddy. Now, let's leave the clinic and go back to the bathroom shelf. The ordinary multi-peptide serum for hair density. This bottle actually has a stronger case than most cosmetic hair serums. That's why I'm not throwing it in E tier with oils and the gummies. It contains Redenzil, Compixol, and Procapil, and these known together as RCP, along with other peptide technologies with plant extracts. In one 24-week study, an RCP formula reported it was better researcher, photographic, and patient scores than 5% minoxidil. Now, the moment a man hears better than minoxidil, oh, he gonna be like this. What'd you say? What'd you say? You said better than minoxidil? Huh? Oh, I'm all ears, boy. Come on now, I'm all ears. Oh, what? Hey, it's a non-prescription serum that beat minoxidil? Oh, yeah. I'm in. Hey, just let me know. Let me know where it is, where I can get it, and I'm going to get it. But slow down, Kimosabi. That study tested its own RCP formula. It did not test this finished bottle. And the results lean heavily on visual and opinion-based scores instead of published objective hair count. So the ordinary gives us the names of the ingredient technologies. It doesn't tell us whether the concentration ratios are, or I would say delivery system, match the study formula. Could it support a man with early thinning whose follicles are still active? Yeah. Would I put it beside minoxidil based on what we have? No. I'm not ranking the names on the labels. I'm ranking the treatment inside the bottle. So more than the marketing part of it, it definitely has some promising ingredients. that has evidence, but there's still limited proof on the finished product. So ordinary goes into C tier. Go ahead and put that in the C tier, big dog. Now let's go from a serum and a dropper to a device you wear on your head. Red light therapy. Now, the price will confuse you before the science does. Now, you can find a cap for around $60 to $90, depending on the season. Then you turn around and see a helmet for $600 to $900, if not more. And most men look at that price difference and think the expensive helmet has to grow more hair. But your follicle doesn't know what you paid. What matters is the light output, the wavelength, how much of that scalp is covered, the treatment schedule, whether you actually use it consistently. And I explain it like this. Your car can have gas, oil, and a working engine, right? But without the battery, it isn't starting. Same thing with the flashlight. No battery, no light. Your hair needs energy too. You see, the cells inside a working follicle uses mitochondria to produce that energy. Red light appears to support that mitochondria activity and the signals involved in the follicle growth. And there was a study, right? And it was a controlled 16-week study, a 655 nanometer device that improved hair counts in men with hair loss compared with a sham device. So if your follicles are still alive, but working below capacity, especially with early to moderate thinning, then red light may give them useful support. But understand what it's doing. That is supportive energy. It's not a new follicle. A helmet can't bring back a follicle that is destroyed or scarred. And a weak device you use whenever you remember is not the same as an effective device used on a schedule. So this has good evidence. It's a non-drug support tool. The quality of the device and also consistency matters. So these things are very important. And so with that, red light therapy, we're going to put that in the B tier. Put that in the B tier for me. Now let's go from a high-tech helmet to a $10 oil. A lot of black men already recognize Mielle Rosemary Mint Oil. Now, a man with mild thinning sees rosemary, mint, biotin, and strengthening on the bottle in his head. All that has to add up to regrowth. Okay. Now, rosemary does deserve a real conversation. In one 6-month trial, a rosemary oil formula and 2% Minoxidil both increase hair counts with no significant difference between the groups. This gives rosemary more credibility than most viral oils. But before we crown this bottle, that study did not test Mielle's finished product. Mielle is a large blend of soybean, castor, rosemary, jojoba, peppermint, eucalyptus, tea tree, and other oils and extracts. We don't know whether the rosemary concentration, the ratio, or the delivery in this bottle matches the formula used in that study. Could it support a man with mild early thinning while the follicles are still active? Yeah, it may. It can also help with dry hair, split ends, shine, and keeping the length you grow. But stronger looking hair and less breakage are not the same as reversing follicle miniaturization, all right? And with that, many essential oils in one bottle, a sensitive scalp may not like. Believe me. Okay. So it does have a real ingredient signal. We give it credit for that. There's still some limitations on the proof, on the finished product. So let's go ahead and put Mielle, rosemary, mint oil in the D tier. Go ahead and put that in the D tier, big dog. Appreciate that. Now let's leave the oil and go to one of the most debated pills in the hair loss sphere, Finasteride. Okay? This isn't about making the hair look thicker for the day. This is the man watching his crown and his mid-scalp fade away. And he wants to slow down what is happening. Think of DHT like pressure being applied to a genetically sensitive follicle. If that pressure stays there long enough, each new hair can come back thinner, shorter, weaker. You see, finasteride blocks type 2,5-alpha reductase. You know, the enzyme that converts testosterone into DHT? In one study, 1 milligram a day lowered scalp DHT by about 64% and serum DHT by about 71% after 42 days. Now, lowering DHT is not the same as saying DHT is the whole story. No. Because hair loss is multifactorial. Remember that. Hair loss is multifactorial. All right? So finasteride handles one major pressure, but not every pressure that's being put on the body, the follicle, the scalp. And that reduction matters because it turns down the pressure. It can slow miniaturization, protect the hair you still have, and improve growth in some men. It may help men with early to moderate pattern hair loss while those follicles are still producing hair. While the strongest evidence is around the crown and the mid-scalp. Effectiveness at the receding temples has not really been established so much. Now, I can't breeze by this and act like the side effect conversation don't exist, because it does. I have that conversation with my clients all the time. All right. This is a prescription decision, and I don't push anybody in any direction. I just kind of lay the facts down on the table and you make the decision, because there is a sexual and other possible side effects that need an honest conversation when you are considering finasteride. Now, one mistake I see men make is jumping straight into it. The deep end. They go straight in there, like take their shirt off, you know what I'm saying? Be woo, 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 woo. They go cannonball. Big mistake. All right. You want to go full dose every single day, like right to it. Like, ah, man, wait a minute. You know, you don't even, what do you got to figure out? How does your body respond to this? You know what I mean? You just gonna go full, all the way in. You ain't got no. You ain't gonna pace this thing? Nah, cannonball. I'm trying to get this thing over and done with quick. But for me, it's you want to take baby steps. And so for my clients who choose finasteride, we do discuss about, lowering the exposure and just taking micro doses and then work our way to the deep end. All right. And that just helps because then now we can see how the body responds over time. And then we know where is our limitation? Where's that demarcation line? And we know we can't jump over that line. Now, that approach, you probably don't really get to hear that approach because that's an off-label approach that I talk about. And it also doesn't remove the risk of the side effects. The point is to assess the tolerance instead of assuming more medication automatically means a better plan. That's all I'm basically saying. So with finasteride, it also requires a continued use. So you got to also understand that. If you stop the DHT, that pressure to the follicle will return. And that protection that you had, you know what I'm saying, will be reversed. And even the FDA label says the effect reverses within 12 months after withdrawal. So with finasteride, it does have some strong evidence. It does have a strong protection. It is a ongoing medical decision. So with that being said, finasteride, hey, put that in the A tier, big dog. Now, let's go from a prescription pill back to one of the thickest oils in the hair aisle, Jamaican black castor oil. Now, men feel how heavy and sticky this oil is and make a simple connection. Shoot, thick oil must grow thick hair. And I understand the logic. It just doesn't work that way, buddy. Jamaican black castor oil can coat the hair strand, reduce friction, and help hold the moisture in and keep dry or brittle hair strands from breaking fast. It does that. Now, if the breakage and the poor length retention are your real problems, that could be useful, especially when you use the oil on hair itself. But the thickness of an oil tells you how it spreads and it coats. It doesn't tell you the thickness of the hair it can grow. And I would say we don't have strong human evidence showing castor oil can restart a follicle that is miniaturizing. And I would also add, Jamaican black castor oil is not one standardized treatment. You have the roasting, the processing, and the added oils that can change from bottle to bottle. If your hair or your scalp already has buildup, this repeated heavy use of this oil can leave everything coated and make the cleansing part even harder. So it's great for support when it comes to your hair fiber. There is no proven follicle treatment for it. So I'm going to put Jamaican black castor oil. Let's go ahead and put that in the E tier, big dog. E tier, put it in the E tier. Now let's move from an oil that coats the hair to a tool that intentionally creates a controlled injury in the scalp, microneedling. This is where more can get you in trouble. Now, a man buys a roller or a stamp and thinks, man, if a little pressure is good, going deeper and doing it more often and seeing more blood must be better. What? You see, microneedling creates tiny controlled injuries. Think of it like sending a repair crew into a neighborhood. The scalp responds with wound healing signals and growth factors. If a follicle is underperforming but still alive, what men usually call dormant, those signals may help it become more active. You got me? In a randomized study of 100 men, weekly microneedling with 5% minoxidil produced a greater improvement in hair count than minoxidil alone over 12 weeks. Now, this next part is personal for me because I watched it happen with a client. He used the dermastamp and then applied minoxidil right behind it. Soon after that, his heart started fluctuating. And I can't prove that combination caused the reaction, but freshly stamped skin is not the same as untouched skin. Putting minoxidil on immediately may increase irritation and absorption. That's why I tell my clients to wait 24 hours after microneedling before bringing minoxidil back. Create the repair signal first, okay? Don't drive minoxidil through freshly injured skin. Microneedling still can't wake up a dead follicle. It definitely has strong evidence as an add-on treatment, but not a solo cure. Okay, so you have to understand depth matters, frequency matters, and sanitation matters. Okay, cleanliness. And if you're going too deep, doing it too often, or using a dirty device, this will lead to irritation, infection, or even scarring. So don't use this over an active, inflamed, or infected scalp. Right? That's the warning label I'm giving you. Don't ever, do not, however you want to say it, ever use this on an actively inflamed or infected scalp. All right? So with microneedling, it has strong evidence as an add-on. Its results definitely going to depend on the technique when you're using it. So I will put the microneedling, let's put that in the B tier. Go ahead and put that in B tier. Now let's go from tiny needles in the scalp to 4 capsules taken every day. Nutrafol for men. A lot of men know Nutrafol because of NBA champion Jaylen Brown, who now plays in Philadelphia. Some of you remember the viral came when hair enhancement product rubbed off onto another player's jersey. Instead of running from the hair conversation, Jaylen eventually partnered with Nutrafol. And that partnership creates belief. If an NBA champion uses it and the label has a long list of ingredients, this must cover every reason a man is losing hair. Sounds logical to me. I look at Nutrafol like a toolbox. You have saw palmetto, ashwagandha, curcumin, tocotrienols, collagen, vitamins, and minerals. These are the real tools, and they may support several pressures connected to thinning. There's also finished product evidence. There was a 6-month randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study in men reported better hair growth and hair quality measures than placebo. And that matters. But the company behind Nutrafol funded the study. So I'm not treating it like a fully independent proof. Could it help a man with mild thinning or shedding while his follicles are still active? Yes. especially when stress or nutritional support is part of the picture. But a toolbox only helps when you know what is broken. Giving every man the same broad formula, that does not tell him what is actually driving his hair loss. It can also overlap with other supplements or medications. So somebody still needs to look at the full stack. So with Nutrafol, has real ingredients and some finished product evidence. Now, I still will say, hey, you want to get, a personal diagnosis. You want to have some support because it does have some broadness to it, and everything in the every ingredient that you need or the amount of that ingredient, Nutrafol may not have it for you. I personally like more supplements that you can have a little bit more control and customize. When you're dealing with a more broad scope of ingredients, it may not cover and fill every gap that you need, but it is a start. So I would put Nutrafol in the C tier. So go ahead and put Nutrafol in the C tier for me. Now, let's move from a supplement promoted by an NBA champion to an edge serum created by Beyonce. Cécred Restoring Hair and Edge Drops. Now, their claim sounds strong. They claim you get 1.5 times denser looking hair, and 84% of users reported improved scalp and hair health. Now, a man hears those type of numbers and sees Beyonce name, he thinking he's buying a proven edge regrowth treatment. It's Beyonce. It's gotta work. Hate to be the bearer of bad news, big dog, but that's not what those claims prove. Cécred is not just another oil. It's a water-based serum built around peptides, fermented keratin, biotin, and botanical extracts. If I'm grading this formula for hair loss, about 60% of it is fancy dressing. You just fanciness around it. The other 40% is where you get more of the heavy hitters. Now, don't get me wrong, the fancy dressing helps hydrate, condition, and preserve the formula and deliver it. The 5 peptides are the really players that's carrying most of the hair density argument in this particular product. But promising players do not prove the whole team can win. Now, the visible hair density claim that came from the 16-week third-party consumer study, they don't come from a published placebo-controlled trial using objective hair counts. So could it support mild, early edge thinning while the follicles are still active? Possibly, especially after, tight styling or, repeated tension on on your temples or even on your hairline. Now, but the finished product, I would say it still has something to prove, for some people. For some people, y'all probably already say, hey, I got some results. I'm good. Hey, I got you. I'm not saying that's not the case. But what I'm going to say about the Cécred Restoring Hair and Edge Drops, it goes in the D tier. So go ahead and put that in the D tier, big dog. Go ahead and do that. Now, let's go from a newer edge serum back to an old school bottle a lot of Black households already know. Wild Growth Hair Oil. The name does most of the selling before you even open the cap. It says hair growth. So men assume it's been proven to restore a thinning follicle. Inside of it is a large blend of coconut, olive, rice bran, pumpkin seed, botanical extracts, and several essential oils. Those ingredients can coat the hair strand, reduce friction, and soften the hair strands, and also help the texture of the hair as far as helping it break less and look fuller. Now, one of the things you want to understand about this, if you keep more of the hair you already grew, your hair can hold length and look fuller. And that's useful, but that is a hair care result. It's not proof that the hair oil made a weakening follicle produce new hair growth. So if your real problem is like dryness, tangling, breakage, or poor length retention, then wild hair growth may help with that problem. What it does not have is a controlled human trial showing the finished product treats male pattern hair loss. And because the essential oil list is long, a sensitive scalp may get irritated with that. So you want to take that into consideration. And also when you're using it, a heavy use of it can also lead to buildup. Now, it has a good oil blend. I'm not going to, take that from it. Definitely has a great oil, a good oil blend to it. It's very useful for, holding the length, but it's just not a proven hair loss treatment. So Wild Growth Hair Oil goes in the E tier. Go ahead and put that in the E tier for me. By now, you can see why copying somebody else's routine can waste your time and money. The right treatment depends on what is actually driving your hair loss. If you want help building a plan for your scalp, your body, your stage that you're in with your hair loss, schedule a free hair loss consultation through the link in the description. Now, let's see where the next treatment belongs. Now, let's move to a shampoo that was never approved to grow hair, Nizoral. This is for the man who is thinning while his scalp is also flaky, itchy, oily, or inflamed. Now, he clears the flakes, he sees less irritation, and he starts thinking, shampoo is regrowing my hair. I want you to slow down there, partner. All right? Those are two different wins you got. I look at Nizoral like a fire extinguisher for the scalp. It makes the most sense when yeast and inflammation are part of the fire. When yeast gets elevated and the scalp stays inflamed, that environment falls out of balance, right? And then the follicle is not going to perform well, and it's not going to perform its best inside a scalp that's consistently flaking, itchy, oily, and irritated. Now, the common over-the-counter shampoo contains 1% ketoconazole. Its labeled job is controlling the fungus connected with dandruff, which can calm the scalp environment. There's also limited research suggesting ketoconazole shampoo may provide mild local support against the DHT pathway and improve some hair measures. And I say mild. That signal is not strong or predictable enough to put Nizoral in the same conversation as Finasteride. So that's why I say mild. Where it may help most is when thinning is happening alongside dandruff or seborrheic dermatitis. Now, controlling the scalp problem removes one source of the pressure, but most of the limited hair loss research use 2% ketoconazole. The common over-the-counter bottle is 1%, and frequent use may leave textured hair or sensitive scalp feeling dry. So that's why I tell my clients when we're working with a Nizoral to make sure that you are using a moisturizing conditioner that's going to put back all the goods. Everything that you stripped away from the scalp and the hair, you got to put that moisture right back into the scalp. And also you got to put them healing properties right back into the scalp as well. So you want to keep that in mind when you are using Nizoral, and make sure that the conditioner sits in the scalp for a period of time. All right. And I give my clients, depending on my clients, I let them know what period of time that it should be sitting in their scalp. Because if you don't let it sit in your scalp for a period of time, then you could be cutting yourself short and the product and things are not effective. All right, so back to Nizoral. It's a strong dandruff treatment. All right, so it's very useful for scalp support. It has a mild possible DHT support, so you get that. It's not a primary regrowth treatment, so Nizoral goes in C tier. So put that in the C tier. Go ahead and put that there, big dog. All right. So Nizoral goes into C tier. Now let's move from mild DHT support in a shampoo to a plant sold as a natural DHT blocker, saw Palmetto. This is for the man who wants the protection of finasteride without taking finasteride. And he sees the word natural and assumes he found the same result with none of the trade-offs. Now, I want you to think of DHT control like turning down a valve. Finasteride turns that valve down strongly and predictably. Saw Palmetto may work on the same valve, but the effect is weaker, and it depends on the extract and the dose. That's very important. And in in 1 2-year comparison, 38% of men taking 320 milligrams of saw Palmetto showed increased hair growth. And in that same study, finasteride was 68%. And another study, a newer 16-week study using one standardized saw Palmetto oil, also reported less shedding and modest density gains. Now, that is enough for me to say there is a signal, and natural doesn't mean side effect free or interaction free. The product, the dose, your medications, and prostate monitoring still need to be discussed when you're using saw Palmetto. So with this, I would say it has some plausible mechanism. No, we put that in the bucket. It has some human evidence, right? We put that in the bucket. It can be less predictable than the prescription DHT control. So saw palmetto goes in the C tier. So go ahead and put that in the C tier for me. Now let's stay in the natural DHT lane because the next one gets called nature's finasteride, pumpkin seed oil. Now that name is doing a lot of work. A man hears finasteride and then thinks pumpkin seed oil must lower DHT with the same kind of strength just without the medication. I would look at it more like a speed road than a roadblock. It may slow down some activity around the DHT pathway. We just don't have a reliable number showing how much it lowers DHT in men with hair loss. What we do have is one randomized study. There were 76 men who took 400 milligrams of a specific pumpkin seed oil supplement every day for 24 weeks. The men taking the supplement had an average hair count increase of 40%. The placebo group was 10%. Now, 40% gets your attention, right? But this is where people run too far with the headline and start treating every bottle of pumpkin seed oil like it's produced that result. That is not what the study showed. The men swallowed one specific supplement. They did not test every capsule, every topical oil, or the pumpkin seed oil sitting in somebody's kitchen. Okay? Like, grandma got pumpkin seed oil. Let me go use that, Roger. Grandma, can I use your pumpkin seed oil? They saying it go up my hair by 40%. Go ahead, baby. Go and use the pumpkin seed oil. But you pumpkin anyway. You get all the pumpkin you want, baby. Could it be worth considering for a man with mild thinning who wants a botanical option? Sure. As long as he understands what the evidence can and can't say. So one promising study gives me a signal. It doesn't turn pumpkin seed oil into finasteride. All right. So let's make that clear. It does have some promising human data. The unknown DHT reduction is, we still have to, it's still questionable out there. And it also has some limited proof of how effective it is across products. So with that being said, I put pumpkin seed oil in the C tier. So go ahead and put pumpkin seed oil in the C tier. Grandma gonna get you now. So don't use all pumpkin seed oil, boy. Now let's go from natural speed bump to one of the strongest DHT medications on this board, Dutasteride. This is the man whose hair loss is still moving. That thing is in motion, like rolling. That thing rolling like this, coming down a river. Woo, 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 woo. And he wants something stronger than finasteride. He's not looking to slow DHT down a little. He wants to shut that thing down as much as he possibly can. Like, let's shut that signal down right now. We ain't. Shut it down. So there are two major enzyme routes that convert testosterone into DHT, and you got to know what this is. Finasteride blocks type 2. Dutasteride blocks type 1 and type 2. That's why I look at it like closing both DHT roads. All right, you got two roads to hair loss, miniaturization, and it put that thing in a headlock like this. Hey, boy, what you say? I ain't gonna do DHT. Like, I ain't gonna do nothing. I promise. Nah, we gonna lock you down, boy. I'm about to put you to sleep, boy, like a wrestler. Put you to sleep. That's what the Dutasteride gonna do. Dutasteride gonna put that DHT to sleep, okay? Now, in a hair loss study, 0.5, they use 0.5 milligrams, and it lowered DHT in the blood by 92%. Whew, that's a high count. On the scalp, what it did, it reduced DHT by, I think it was about 51%. Yeah, it was like 51%. Now, I want you to pay attention to that difference. 92% in the blood doesn't mean 92% around the follicle. Now, the medication is still powerful. I said the medication is still powerful, but blood and scalp are not the same measurement. Get that through your thick skull. No pun intended. Okay. Now you have this randomized trials that also have shown better hair count and hair width in men with male pattern hair loss. Now, you also have randomized trials that also show or has shown better hair count and hair width in men with male pattern hair loss. So, could Dutasteride help a man with confirmed androgenic alopecia who needs a stronger DHT control? Yes, the evidence is there. But stronger also means there's less room for casual experimenting. In the United States of America, Dutasteride is approved for an enlarged prostate. Using it for hair loss is off-label and needs a qualified prescriber. It also has a half-life of about 5 weeks. All right, so the drug can still be detected for about 4 to 6 months after you stop it. All right, so just keep that in mind. So when you get in a relationship with her, just know she ain't looking for a short fun. She looking for a long time, a commitment before you get some of that business. You know what I'm talking about? This ain't a one-night stand. You know what I'm saying? This is a long time of commitment. So you got to know you're going to get married to her. And that requires it because if you want it to work over time, then you got to commit to the process and the program. It's just what it is. It is what it is. So with that being said, Dutasteride, let's put that bad boy in the A tier. Now let's leave the pills and let's talk about the option a lot of men believe within the whole hair loss conversation: a hair transplant. Now this one is personal for me because I've worked with several clients who spent thousands of dollars on a transplant, saw improvement, and still watched their overall density drop afterward. Some of them had to go back for a second procedure. You see, the surgery fixed the cosmetic problem they can see, but nobody gave them a complete plan for what was still happening around the transplanted hair. The surgeon helped them heal from the procedure. That didn't automatically mean somebody helped them keep the rest of their hair. So think of a hair transplant like moving grass from the backyard to the front yard. That's all you're doing. You're just moving grass from the backyard to the front yard, okay? That's all you're doing. Now, the grass can make the front look better, but you didn't create more grass. You relocated. You relocated. Get it out today, Junior. You relocated a limited supply. Now, for the right candidate, a skilled surgeon can create natural-looking coverage with follicles taken from a strong donor area. And I'm not denying cosmetic results. I can see it. But the native hair around those grafts can keep thinning. And every graft you move uses part of a donor supply that does not keep refilling itself. All right, so when you empty the clip, that's all you got. That's all you got. So when you shoot, you better shoot to the heart. All right, this is why some men end up chasing the hair loss with a second surgery. It doesn't always mean the first grafts failed. Sometimes the hair around the work keep changing because the progression was never managed. So before I spin the donor supply, I want to know what is driving the hair loss and what the long-term plan is for protecting the hair that is still there. I would put the money into that plan first. Surgery is the last resort, not the first solution. So can transplant improve how a man looks? Absolutely. But as a complete hair loss solution, it only moves the hair. It does not create the whole plan. So the hair transplant, hey, put that in the F tier, big dog. It goes in the F tier. Now let's go from one of the most expensive options on the board to one that costs nothing. I mean, we went from heavy pockets to just lint in the pocket, and you with the lint in the pocket, you can do this. Scalp massage. This is the man who massages his scalp every night, feels the tingling, believes that, that means like the dormant follicles are waking up or something. You know what I mean? The follicles be like, Dang, boy, I missed my 5 o'clock flight. You know what I mean? It's 5 a.m., 6 a.m. I'm supposed to be up at 5. You know, you be thinking like, your follicles doing that, But listen, movement can feel like progress, all right? But feeling something happen and proving hair regrowth are two different things. I look at a massage like warming up for the scalp. It's like a warm up for the scalp. You know what I'm saying? Before you know what I mean? You get older, you got to warm up. You just can't go out there and try to shoot. You can't go out there trying to run. You got to stretch, boy. You got to stretch your hamstring, boy, because you can bend down and try to grab, some trash and bloop, plop, your whole hamstring gone. You know what I'm saying? So I look at it like warming the scalp up. It can create a movement in the tissue, reduce tension, and support the environment around the follicle that is still active. There was a study where people usually point to, and the study is small, where you had 9 healthy men. They did a standardized 4-minute massage every day. And after 24 weeks, their hair shafts were thicker. I find that interesting. Yeah, that is very interesting. But those were 9 healthy men. 9 healthy men, okay? Healthy is a key word in there. Now, the study didn't show that the massage regrew what the men lost as far as the hair. And it also didn't reverse male pattern hair loss. But it can be a simple, low-cost, supportive habit for someone whose scalp tolerates it. With that being said, it's not a silver bullet. It's free, okay? It is low risks when you do it correctly and gently. There is some limited evidence as far as for the actual regrowth. So you have to put it with an entire plan. It needs to be part of an entire plan because it's not a silver bullet. Okay. So we're going to put scalp massages in the D tier. Now let's go for something free to one of the most expensive, futuristic options on this board. Exosome Therapy. Did I pronounce that right? Exosome? Now, this is for the man who has tried the standard treatments and wants whatever sounds the newest, right? And a clinic says regenerative, and he hears we can rebuild the follicles, right? He just, oh my gosh, well, you can rebuild follicles and you can regenerate? This is the type of situation I'm looking for. Now, this is much bigger promise than the science can make right now. You just got to understand that. This is a much bigger promise than the science can make. Think of exosomes like text messages sent between cells. They carry signals that can tell another cell how to respond. But the message is not a new cell and it's not a brand new follicle. You have early human studies. They have reported improvements in hair density or thickness. So I'm not throwing the biology away with that. This is something worth watching. The problem is that exosome therapy is not one standard treatment. Would you agree, wifey? Wifey agrees. So you have different clinics. They may use products from different sources with different amounts. So as my wife says, who works in a clinic, who does this, there's different clinics. They may use products from different sources with different amounts. They have different preparation methods and different delivery protocols. So when one study reports a result, that does not prove the vial sitting in another clinic carries the same message or delivers the same outcome. And a text message only matters when the right receiver is still on the other end. So if the follicle can no longer respond, more signaling doesn't guarantee new hair. Could this eventually help men with active follicles that need additional signaling? Possibly, but the human studies are still small, the formulas are still inconsistent, and the long-term evidence is limited. There are currently no FDA-approved exosome products. The FDA has also reported serious adverse events involving unapproved products marketed as containing exosomes. But it has some promising science. However, there's no standard formula, no approved product across the map. And right now, it's a very expensive experiment. So exosome goes in the F tier. Now let's move from a procedure promising regeneration to one that does not grow hair at all. Scalp micropigmentation. This is a man who's tired of hair fibers, powders, and checking whether the light is exposing his scalp. He wants a sharper hairline or a fuller shaved look right now. If you're with a trained practitioner, they're going to place tiny dots of pigment into the scalp to imitate the shadow of a closely cut follicle. Think of it like adding shadows to a drawing. The shadows create the appearance of depth, but they don't add anything new to the drawing. And to be fair, scalp micropigmentation knows what it is. It changes what the eye sees. It doesn't claim to change what the follicle is doing. So it may be a strong visual option for a man who wears a low cut and wants a less contrast between his scalp and hair, or wants to camouflage a hair transplant scar. But the result depends heavily on the practitioner. If the depth, the placement, shape, or color is wrong, the dots can look uneven, unnatural. They can, fade, or they can change colors. So touch-ups may also be needed when you go this route. So keep that in mind. If this board was ranking camouflage or immediate confidence, scalp micropigmentation would score much higher. But we are ranking hair loss treatments. SMMP can make the scalp look fuller. It does not produce one new strand of hair. It's a strong visual option for guys out there. But again, zero hair growth. So scalp micropigmentation goes in the F tier. Go ahead and put that in the F tier, big dog. Now we are at the last treatment on the board. And I say this one for last, but this is where I start with the client. Biomarker guided correction. I know that's a mouthful, but hear me out. Everything we ranked asks, what can we rub on the scalp, swallow, inject, or move around? This one asks a different question. Why is the follicle struggling in the first place? Now, this is the man whose doctor told him his blood work was normal. Your blood work is normal. Everything's okay, but Benjamin. So he assumes everything inside his body is ready to grow hair, right? But normal doesn't automatically mean ready for hair growth. It means those results were read inside a laboratory reference range and did not raise a clear medical alarm. All right? You ain't got no disease? All right, Roger, I'll see you in a year. All right, Doc, I'll see you in a year. And you still walking down the aisle or the hallway, you like, dang, but my hairline still ain't fixed. This is important, but it's not the end of the hair conversation. There is no single universal hair growth printed on a lab report, okay? And I'm not chasing a made-up perfect number. I'm reading the number beside the man. I'm checking his shedding pattern, scalp, diet, his symptoms, any health history, medications he's on, how those markers are changing over time. And so you have to understand your body is also a hierarchy. Think of it like a household budget. When money gets tight, you pay the light bill before you pay Netflix. Your heart, your lungs, your liver, kidneys are the light bill. Your hair is closer to Netflix. And it matters to you, but your body does not need it to keep you alive. So your hair can be one of the first things it stops investing in when resources get tight. You see, hair takes energy. It's not free. You know what I'm saying? This is not free. It needs oxygen delivery, blood flow, protein, nutrients, hormonal balance, a stable internal environment to keep producing the strong strands. This is what I tell my clients. The hair follows the body. The body doesn't follow the hair. Now, the lab draw doesn't grow hair. A number on a page is only a clue. The treatment is what happens next, okay? So you have to confirm what's actually off. That's what we have to do first. Then you correct what is contributing to that. Then you monitor the response to the correction. And then you choose a growth support that matches the man. So these are the things you have to do when you have your labs and you put together a plan. Now, not every abnormal number causes hair loss, and fixing one number doesn't guarantee regrow. This is why this has to be guided and not guessed. Now, genetics may set the follicle sensitivity, but genetics doesn't tell me the full condition of the man carrying that sensitivity. So when it comes to hair loss, as I said before, it's still multifactorial. This is why biomarker guided correction goes in the S tier. So we're going to put that in S tier. Don't forget about that. All right. You get a comprehensive assessment. You get targeted correction. Then you get the right growth support. What it does is that it moves upstream and it stops us from treating every man like the same pressure is driving the same symptom. This is the difference between collecting treatments and building a plan. Okay? The best treatment isn't always the newest, strongest, or most expensive one. It is the one that matches the man, the stage of the hair loss he's in, and what his body and scalp are showing you. Now, you've seen every treatment on the board, worst to best, and the one thing at number one that almost nobody buys. But knowing the board isn't the same as growing hair back, because there's one more thing every black man has to get right before any of this starts working, and it's the piece most guys never figure out on their own. Get it wrong, and even that number one move won't move the needle. I break it down in this next video right here. Watch it.